All eyes are on Austin FC. Tonight, MLS's 27th club begins their journey with the 2020 Expansion Draft. They got a stadium, they've got new threads, and they have got a future that starts on the field in a few months. Tonight, they will add 5 names to that first ever squad list and maybe make a few moves too. The sun is rising on another MLS season, and Austin FC are preparing for their first moment in the spotlight. Here is the draft room down in Texas. Sporting director Claudio Reyna and head coach Josh Wolff preparing to make their selections. Welcome to the 2020 MLS Expansion Draft. I am Andrew Wiebe, joined by, as always, my partners in soccer, Kalen Carr and Matt Doyle. And guys, this feels a little bit like a tradition at this point. We turn the page, we award MLS Cup, and on it is to another season. Doyle, Austin, this is their first official moment in the sun, I would say, and it's a big one.
Yeah, it is a big one, though. I would argue that their first official moment in the sun came during that half-day trade window on Sunday when they were super busy. They've already kind of laid a foundation for this team, and we're going to see them start to fill out that roster a little bit tonight, which is always fun and exciting for MLS nerds like ourselves. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and they've assembled a really good staff. I think Reyna and Wolff there. I mean, even you look down to the academy, my old teammate Tyson Wall, excited to see what they do there, bringing together some homegrown players up. And then, yeah, Matthew McConaughey, add that on top. That makes it a lot more fun. I mean, the marketing, the kits look really nice. So I think it's going to instantly become one of the best away days in MLS. And I should know because I used to go up there on weekends. And that's the other cool part is it connects the dots, too, between Houston and Dallas. I do think it's going to become really interesting and sort of connect those two different pieces and make it really fun.
Nice little soccer triangle in the Lone Star State. Of course, the rules here are very, very important on this expansion draft day. 10 teams who had players taken in the 2019 version of the expansion draft by Nashville and Miami, well, they're exempt. They did not have to protect players. They cannot have a player taken in this draft by Austin FC. Clubs are allowed to protect up to 12 players, and Austin FC can select 5 players. Once a club has a player selected, they are no longer at risk, let's say, for Austin FC. So we will see what happens here in just a little bit. Claudio Reyna and Josh Wolff will make those decisions. But first, let's see a little bit what Austin has to offer when they do take the field in 2021.
Today, Major League Soccer has officially welcomed Austin FC as the league's 27th team.
Austin's first professional Major League sports team.
McConaughey joins Eddie Margain, Marius Haas, and Brian Sheffield as co-owners of the team.
Austin FC announced Monday they have sold out season ticket memberships.
It's special, and finally, I would say it feels real.
Without even having played a single match, the hype for Austin's very own Major League Soccer team continues to grow.
These people have been waiting here for over an hour to get their hands on the first ever jersey for Austin FC. They wanted something that was both a classic Austin look and a classic soccer look.
Nothing crosses borders like a soccer ball does. If you take a blueprint of who we are as Austin, we are soccer. This is a soccer city.
All right, let's welcome Austin FC sporting director in now as they prepare to make their picks in just a little bit. That's Claudio Reyna. We know him well in Major League Soccer. Claudio, you made a flurry of moves Sunday during that MLS half-day trade window to create a little bit of a base for this roster. Walk us through the trades that you made. Why are those important pickups for Austin and what you're building?
Yeah, well, we wanted to be aggressive and get some players in, obviously with MLS experience. And if you look at the 5 players we traded for, 3 of them across the back with Nick Lima, ton of experience, very good player, fits in the way we want to play, very athletic, delivers really good balls, and someone who we think is still got a lot of room to improve. So we're really excited about him. Then Julio Cascante and Ben Sweat, guys that know the league well, that also fit into how we want to play, and think their guys are ready for a new challenge and a new step in their career. And then with the Lucis and John Gallagher, likewise guys that all of them are domestic as well, so it keeps us with the international spots open as we move towards the rest of the window and everything ahead. But we just really feel good, and we wanted to make moves, get aggressive, and start putting this roster together.
A lot of mechanisms to think about for you as you build this, as you put the puzzle together. You were part of an expansion draft back in 2014 with NYCFC. I'm sure you've studied that draft, what you did in all the drafts since very closely. What did you learn from that experience with the blue side of New York? How have you researched sort of previous drafts? How will you apply all that to what you do today?
Well, it was completely different, to be honest. First of all, because we didn't have another team to sort of react off of, and so we kind of control it, obviously, being the only team. And so that was a big difference, really. There's obviously more discretionary money now in the system. There's an extra player protected on each team, and there's more players auto-protected. So I think the league's done a good job to continue that balance between giving the expansion teams, although in different ways, the opportunity to build, a squad. We feel we're happy with the picks we're going to have coming up, and but certainly, yeah, you learn from it. You try to get a little bit of experience, some youth, obviously fill in some positions based off of also what we did with our trades, and that was another reason. We just needed to take decisions because then it affects the next one in building our squad and finding players that complement each other. So no doubt about it, we learned, from the different teams, but I think really the big difference is, being alone was certainly different than sharing it with another team like we did with Orlando.
Set some expectations for Austin FC fans who are watching right now and trying to figure out what it is that you are getting, that they are getting in this expansion draft. What kind of players are out there available? Is this a situation where you're building depth, where you're looking for veterans? Do you think there are starters that you can pick up? What is available in this player pool?
Yeah, really a combination. We think we're going to have some starters that will play from the beginning, that could play from the beginning, similar to all the players that we traded for. They're all guys that have many starts for their most recent clubs, as well as some youth as well. And then I think that we'll be looking also for some opportunities to make moves. There was a lot of interest from other clubs with some of the players that were available. So really a combination of it. And again, having signed the two Paraguayan players in Cecilio and Rodney, as well as the trades, we feel that now we were able to really target some areas with experience and also youth, and start really, we'll continue to really round out the roster.
Assets over everything. That's what I think about these expansion drafts. This is the fourth straight that I've been on. Before I let you go and you guys get back in the war room and figure out what you're going to do with these picks, you have those two designated player spots open. Cecilio doing his thing down in Paraguay. Will you fill both for the start of 2021? What is the status on those spots, and what player profile or positions might you be looking for?
Yeah, we plan on it. I think we also need to be patient. I think at the moment the market is really starting to pick up around the world. We can do step by step and really make sure we have that balance between, adding guys, but also being patient. Again, every day there's some really interesting players that are presented to us and need to fit into what we want to do, but we feel really good about where we're going to be when we start the season, and we also are considering the opportunity of adding and strengthening as the season goes on. But yeah, we're very open. Ownership's been fantastic in supporting the soccer ops and putting together a good team, and we feel good when we step on the field in 2021 that we're going to have a really competitive team from day one.
Competitive from day one. That's what Claudio Reyna says. Big thanks to him for joining us. We'll be back with Claudio in about 5 minutes to do what you're all here to watch us do, which is have 5 selections in the 2020 MLS Expansion Draft. Doyle, here is how we see this inaugural Austin FC roster right now as it stands. What do you think when you see this list of players?
Well, I think the 4-2-3-1 formation is probably correct. They have done a nice job of acquiring some guys with potential in the attack, and then some MLS veterans on the back line. And it reminds me a little bit of the way Nashville built last year by getting, starters or at least contributors from the likes of Daniel Lovitz and Dave Romney, and then having Walker Zimmerman eventually fall into their laps. It seems more of that style build than what we've seen from LAFC or Atlanta United in the past. And to me, that seems like the right way to approach it. If you get something proven, you grab it.
Yeah, and there's so many different mechanisms to build your roster. You mentioned the DPs in the interview. I expect those to come at some point, but you'll hear value and versatility a lot today. And when you look across positions that happen like that, I think outside backs, they pick up two really good ones. Lima can play on the left or the right. Sweat, we saw play at center back. And goalkeeper might be another position they look at some point today. But I really think Nick Lima is one of the best outside backs in MLS. Wolff will know him quite well from his time with the U.S. men's national team and the way that they can use him in different ways. So that one stood out to me as a really good move to make over the weekend.
So I wrote today, guys, about how teams in the past, successful ones, have approached this. And Nashville stood out to me, and so did LAFC. They picked up players that both were on their roster, but were also tools to an end, whether that was allocation money, international roster spots, a super draft pick. For instance, Atlanta United used Donnie Toye to get the number 8 that was Julian Gressel. You're trying to create value in this expansion draft. So I want people out there to remember, these might not always stick around with Austin FC, or they might not always be what you think they are. Doyle, what do you think about the strategy on a day like today? What should Claudio, Reyna, and Josh Wolff try to get? What do they want to end the day with?
Well, I think Kalen nailed it. Value and versatility. You're not necessarily, probably not going to find a star out of the expansion draft, but just look at what Nashville was able to do last year. They took Zarek Valentin and flipped him to Houston for Joe Willis, who was honestly one of the best goalkeepers in the league last year. They were able, to take a player in Jimmy Madranda and eventually flip him to Seattle. They could get a young, high upside player in Handwala Bowana. So expect some moves to be made from these picks. That said, a few of these guys every year, they stick around, they end up playing a big role. If we look at that depth chart, they do need some help in central midfield. If you can find a veteran there who can contribute, I think that's a good place to start looking at it. But at this point, you can't be too sure what the decision makers are going to go with at this point. I mean, we've seen it happen in the past. Cincinnati threw us a lot of curveballs, one after another. So you can't be sure of what's to come.
All right. We know somebody who is sure of what's to come, though. That is Claudio Reyna, the sporting director for Austin FC. You're all here watching for one reason, and Claudio, you're here for one reason as well. That's to make your selections. Who is the number 1 pick in the 2020 MLS Expansion Draft for Austin FC?
Yeah, Austin FC, with the number 1 pick in the 2020 Expansion Draft, select Danny Hosen from San Jose Earthquakes.
All right, a forward off the jump for you, Claudio. He does have a tough 2019, had surgery with the San Jose Earthquakes. What do you see in Danny, and why was this the selection for you?
Well, we think, first of all, he's an excellent player. He's a player that fits into our system, plays as a .9, scored many goals in this league. And with a fresh start, we have no doubts that he's going to be a major contributor and really bounce back from, he had a tough year. But, a player who's experienced, good movements, links up really well, and gets at the end of chances. And so with the wide players that we have and we're going to bring in, he's going to get a lot of opportunities to score. And we think he has the quality. We're sure he has the quality to do it. And also experience. He's going to add some leadership right into the locker room from day one.
12 goals in 2018, his best year with the San Jose Earthquakes. Kalen, what do you make of this? What do you think of Danny Hosen and Austin FC?
Well, I think it's a great pick. I mean, when you look at it, sometimes we talked about value, and maybe there are players that are a little bit undervalued because they've been out through injury or whatever it might be. And I think 2018, they'll be looking for him to recapture that form where he had 12 goals, 4 assists, has some really unique capabilities as far as he's very direct. He can get put defenders on their heels. He strikes a good ball. He can get in behind a little bit as well. So I think, especially when you add some dynamic wingers, you bring that into the puzzle and you allow him to get in behind in space in the box. I think, he's an experienced player. His price may be a little bit high, but I think that just shows you how they rate him in Austin.
All right, let's go to the number 2 pick. We'll bring Claudio back in. You have 4 to go, Claudio. Who will you take with the 2nd pick in the 2020 MLS Expansion Draft after Danny Hosen goes number 1?
With the number 2 pick, Austin FC, we're going to select Jared Strout from New York Red Bulls.
Jared Strout from the Colgate Pipeline for the Red Bulls, 11 starts, 20 games played in his first year in Major League Soccer. Doyle, we all like this pick, I think. We talked about him on Extra Time as a guy who could go off the board.
Yeah, he plays with energy, and he's relentless, and he has a little bit of vision, as you can see right there. Just kind of a nonstop motor, and that's what got him onto the field for the Red Bulls. But it's not all motor. He does have some skill, can hit a pass with either foot. Didn't produce that much end product, but it was his rookie season, and you have to like the way he played both sides of the ball. And this is a value pick. This is a guy who is going to be on a minimum contract, and you know he's going to, if you throw him out there, he could do it in MLS. And those are the types of guys you need to get through a regular season.
Yeah, he will get minutes. I mean, fought his way into the side in the Red Bulls. I think 11 starts last year, played, I think, in 20 matches as well. So whether he's, a spot starter at times or coming off the bench, Direct, again, another player that I think will suit themselves well. You got to remember this is going to be, heat in Texas. So you got to find players that can handle those types of climates and have that energy and enthusiasm. And I think Strout will fit in quite well.
All right, Jared Strout and Denny Huijsen, the first two picks of the 2020 MLS Expansion Draft. Let's welcome Claudio back in now to get back on the clock for the number 3 selection. Claudio, who do you have your eye on?
Yep, with the number 3 pick, Austin FC select goalkeeper Brady Scott from Nashville.
All right, Brady Scott from Nashville, a U.S. Youth International. Goalkeeper was one of those spots we saw that was not filled. Claudio, we did not see him in Major League Soccer last year, but again, that was Joe Willis having a great season for Nashville. What do you see in Brady Scott?
Well, I've known him for a long time. We followed him back from his under 20 days with the national team. He also did really well in Cologne for the second team, and he came back. Just a lot of upside, and we just think in our goalkeeping position to have someone younger who's going to be pushing, who's motivated, but still has a lot of upside. We just really excited about bringing Brady to Austin. Of course, at his age, he's still just coming into his development years, but there was no doubt with the kind of feedback we got in the soccer community that he's a goalkeeper with huge upside and has potential to be successful in our league.
Crowded goalkeeper pool in Nashville, Doyle, and here comes Austin to pick up Brady Scott. What do you think of this selection?
How many times did Claudio just say upside? I think he said it 4 or 5 times in one answer right there, and that's what you're getting in Brady Scott. He checks all the boxes in terms of the physical attributes that you want. As Claudio said, he spent a couple of years in Germany, spent a lot of time with the U.S. U20s. He comes from Northern California, which, as we know, Kalen produces a ton of great soccer players. So it's the type of guy that you gamble on in this type of draft and hope that by 2022 or 2023 you have a guy who's pushing through into the first team and getting real minutes.
I'm not saying this is like for like, but I think about a Tyler Miller selection for LAFC. He had been in the league, he had waited his time, he had not been able to push Stefan Frey out of the way, as very few would be able to do, and then when he got to LA, he was a starter for 2 years. We'll see if that holds true for Brady Scott or how that works out. They'll have more signings to make in the goalkeeper position. 3 picks down, 2 to go. Claudio Reyna, let's welcome you back in and make that number 4 selection.
Yeah, with the number 4 pick, Austin FC select Joe Corona from LA Galaxy.
Joe Corona, U.S. International, know him well, of course, from his time in MLS with the Galaxy, but also in Liga MX. What do you see in Joe? Why is he the right midfielder for this group?
Well, he's experienced, first of all, American player. He played abroad at Club America in Tijuana, and so he has a lot of experience. He can play a few different positions. He's very secure with the ball and is a player with a great attitude. He covers a lot of ground, but in midfield, we want ball security, and we think Joe is the type of player that can play in different systems. He can drop down and play as a 6 a little bit next to somebody else, and also just really control the midfield. It's very important. We want to have possession, control the tempo, and he has a lot of experience, and we think that he has, again, another level to achieve, and so we're excited about adding Joe.
Kalen, MLS Experience was the name of the game for Nashville and so many other successful expansion teams in this particular draft. What do you make of this pick and how it brings a little bit of an edge to a team that's going to be brand new in 2021?
Yeah, experience, but also at a good age. I think just 30 years old. He's played in Liga MX. He's come to MLS, and he's a connector. I think he's a guy that's going to be able to connect the dots between not necessarily making the last pass, but maybe the one that's going to keep the ball, move it, and can play in multiple spots, I think, in the middle of midfield. So, I think when you're building a roster, especially as an expansion team, it's really important. We've seen the Atlanta Uniteds go out and get Jeff Lorenowitz or Michael Parkhurst, or players that really know their way around the pitch and can help usher a young team or a new team onto the field. So I think it's a really good pick and a guy that's going to play a big role in that locker room.
In the build-up to this draft, Claudio Reyna had said multiple times, we're looking for guys that kind of provide guardrails because we know it's going to be new. Joe Corona will be one of those guys. There's one pick left in this 2020 MLS Expansion Draft. Do the honors, Claudio. Who will you take with the 5th pick?
Yep, with the 5th and last pick, Austin FC will select Kamal Miller from Orlando.
Kamal Miller from Orlando City. Thank you, Claudio, for joining us. We will talk to Josh Wolff in just a second, but let's talk about Kamal Miller. This is the guy from the jump when I saw those unprotected lists that I said somebody is going to get a good player, a versatile player, Doyle, and here he is, Kamal Miller, Orlando City.
Yeah, good and versatile, as you said. He's a left-footed defender. He played some at center back and some at left back throughout the year for Orlando City. I do think we saw sort of the extent of what he could do at left back in the playoffs. He's not a natural as an overlapper, but he's a good player with a good future. Could provide depth for Austin. I think maybe he has a potential to even start somewhere at some point in his career, probably at center back, not at left back.
And at a good age as well. I think he's just 22 or 23 years old. So, we talked about value, versatility. It helps to have some youth. And I think, Miller, I think having youth and some experience playing in the playoffs and playing for a winning side this year in Orlando, that's going to help a lot for a new team as well.
All right, 5 picks for Austin FC in their expansion draft. Now things turn to the transfer window, to the super draft, to re-entry, to waiver. So many different mechanisms, so many tools for Claudio Reyna and Josh Wolff to work with. You see all 5 here. Thanks for joining us in that sense. You start off with Brady Scott in goal. You also have Kamal Miller. You have Jared Strout taken, Denny Houston, and Joe Corona. Those are the 5 selections for Nashville SC.
Austin.
Oh, my gosh. Sorry, I started talking about goalkeepers and Joe Willis bounced in my mind. Thank you for that. Here they are. You can see the 5 for these teams. What do you make of this, guys? Doyle, how do you judge this draft?
They spread it around a little bit. There's nobody is overlapping. They do now have about 1 million wingers between their signings and drafting Jared Strout. They did balance it between a couple of 30-year-olds in Houston and Corona, and then maybe some younger players in Stroud, Scott, and Miller. So I think it's it doesn't seem dogmatic. It seems like they have an idea of how they want to play, and they're willing to find the pieces that they need wherever they happen to be, which is probably the right way to go about building a team in MLS. You have to kick over every stone.
Caitlin, is there a name that stands out to you here? Just the one guy that you're like, yes, that.
Well, I'm going to look at the strikers. So Danny Houston, I think, is the one sort of bigger attacking piece that we've seen right here, and I wonder if he might play a similar role that maybe a Marco Reyna played for LAFC that first year, where he's just a handful, maybe not expected to score 15, 20 goals, but a guy that can really make it difficult on opposing back lines, and then opening things up for, those attacking wingers. I don't know if we'll see a Rossi or a Vela or what type of player we're going to find, but that's the one attacking piece, and then the rest, I think they did a really good job of getting some really good pieces, especially across the back line, and then I'm interested in Brady Scott in goal. It sounded like he may get a chance, but I think they went to the right positions for the most part in this draft.
You can see them go to Joe Corona, seeing those expansion teams in the past that were so successful. What a veteran midfielder. We do have some breaking news here to announce. Kamal Miller, taken with that 5th pick in the expansion draft, has been traded to the Montreal Impact. $225,000 in general allocation money and a first-round draft pick, the 11th overall in the 2021 Super Draft, going to Austin FC. So this is what we're talking about. The assets that become something else to help you build. They're tools in the long run. Montreal Impact saw this unprotected list. They said, we want Kamal Miller, and here comes Austin FC to play middleman. Doyle, what do you think of this trade, these numbers for Austin FC, and what it means for them?
From Austin's point of view, just getting that extra, super draft pick is another roll of the dice. And if they have a good sort of developmental path for these guys, they will get value. I mean, I think Alistair Johnston was 11th pick last year, and we saw he became invaluable for Nashville SC, and obviously throw a little bit of allocation money on top of that, and maybe go out and get another center back or central midfielder from within the league. So I like it from Austin's point of view. I like it a lot from Montreal's point of view as well. Kamal Miller is a good player, and especially with Thierry Henry's propensity for playing 5 at the back, that makes a lot of sense for him, because you could put him as a left center back. I think that might actually be his natural position, and he is Canadian, so it's a good fit. Even though he's from Toronto, so he's from the red part of Canada, not the blue part of Canada. But he'll have to learn that part of the rivalry, I guess.
All right, makes sense for both sides. A nice trade here for Austin, and Montreal get their man in Kamal Miller. Here's how we see this roster as it currently stands, Kalen. What stands out to you before we get to chatting with Josh Wolff?
Well, Sweat and Cascante, both left-sided defenders, I think makes it a little bit easier to take the value pick in Miller and then move it along. And I read your article earlier about trading for draft picks and how that turned into Julian Gressel at some point for Atlanta United. So I think when you look at the staff that they've built in Austin, that they would be a staff that you would think would be able to get a lot out of the draft as well.
All right, Josh Wolff, he will be the one guiding this team in year 1. Let's welcome him in now. 4 picks coming into the squad, 1 pick sent to Montreal for some assets, Josh, he'll play with down the line. Let's start with these 4 players, Danny Houston, Jared Strout, Brady Scott, and Joe Corona. Why these 4 guys, and how do they fit into the way you want to play?
Yeah, I think you guys have done a great job. It's versatility, it's value, but it's also quality. I think at the end of the day, we have a way that we want to play, and these guys will all bring qualities that will help us be successful. They'll all compete for playing time. Some of these players will be starters, but ultimately we feel they have a place, certainly on the field. And their quality is the first thing that we look at, and now we think of how we can utilize their attributes to bring our game model to life.
Josh, one of the defining things of that great crew team that you were the assistant coach for with Greg Berhalter was the play of Pipa Higuain. And, of course, over this past year, we've seen the play of guys like Bebelo Reynoso and Lucas Zelarayan and, of course, Nico Ladero, Alejandro Pazuello. It's the league of the number 10 is what I'm saying. And you guys went out and got Cecilio Dominguez. Do you see him as your number 10? Is he going to fit that role, or do you see him more as a winger for Austin?
I see Cecilio as being an impactful player. I think he can play on the wings. I think he plays between lines. What I think we've watched, even as he's gone back to Guarani, is how impactful he is around goal. And he scores goals. He creates goals. He has a nice calmness about him. And this assimilation of players that we have so far, we certainly feel we'll still be out there in the market for other DPs and these playmaking DPs that you talk about. So Cecilio gives us quality and certainly a goal threat, which I think is a big part of what we want to achieve in Austin.
Josh, when you look at how you want to play, and you mentioned the style of play, what can Austin FC fans expect to see as far as a system or a style of play on the pitch?
Yeah, I think we want to have the ball. We want to utilize the ball. We want good balance. We want to score goals. We want to be entertaining. I think that's you hear that often in the game. It's easily talked about. It's difficult to achieve, but we want players that are aggressive. Again, we want speed. We want verticality. We want dynamic, but we want balance. We want to understand when we don't have the ball what it looks like. But ultimately, we want attacking style and we want to score goals. For us to have the fans come out, be entertained, and be thirsty for it the following week. And I think these players reflect that.
We'll talk to Claudio Reyna on Extra Time on Thursday, so we'll dig into this more with him. But, Josh, I think about, say, Nashville, and I think about the sort of centerpiece that they went and got in Walker Zimmerman. You just picked up more allocation money, more to work with. When you look around Major League Soccer, are you thinking we need to go out and get sort of that like lockdown guy, whether it be in central midfield or in the center of defense? Is there a certain position within the league that you say we got to find somebody there that has the experience and the quality not just to be a starter, but maybe to be an impact player, defender of the year, an award winner?
Yeah, I think, first it starts with how we want to play. We want the ball, so we do want our center backs to have that capability of building up, dealing with pressure. We know we're going to have opposition that's going to high press. We know what it's going to look like at times, and Cascante is someone that can handle that. He's a very technical player, and again, as we move through the mechanisms of MLS and we look abroad as well, there's other center backs out there that we're after, and hopefully in the not so future we'll have a couple more of those to announce.
We will wait patiently for those as well as we can. Josh Wolff, the head coach of Austin FC. We'll see you in 2021, Coach. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yep, you bet. Thanks, guys.
All right, let's talk about what success means for Austin FC. And I think in large part for Nashville, this year was a clear success. They went to the playoffs. They advanced in the playoffs. For Inter Miami, they're still sort of grappling with what happened in year one and what comes after it. When you think about Austin FC, Kaylin, and what they should expect in 2021, what they should aim for, what is that?
Well, playoffs. I always say playoffs is the marker of success for any MLS club, and I think we've seen expansion teams get into it, and then you see Nashville even win a game or two and make a nice little run. And I think one thing to maybe take away from it is just how well prepared they were as far as their planning, the way they approached the season. And yes, you leave a little bit of flexibility to make moves as the season goes on, but I would be careful, I think, as far as waiting too long to make moves. And I think that's why it's so good to see Austin making some of these moves already, getting an MLS experience, but still having the flexibility to go out into the market and bring in some bigger players as well.
Playoffs are a super high bar. Super high bar in that Western Conference. I'm not going to say they need to make the playoffs to have a successful season. I'm going to say that at this point next year, we're not talking about Austin going into a rebuild, because we're kind of seeing that with Miami. They've already let 15 guys go from their roster. We saw it with Cincinnati after season one. We saw it with Minnesota after season one. Just make sure that the guys you get now are part of the foundation going forward for 2 or 3 years. And to me, that will have been a successful debut season for Austin.
Anybody else get a little bit excited when they talk about a number 10 and perhaps Cecilio Dominguez not being that guy, that there being additional pieces that you could look at in that sense? When you think about those DP spots, what do you think, Doyle? What would be the right fits? Who should they be targeting? Bit on their needs, but also on the history of sort of that slot and success there in MLS.
I mean, if you look at the way it's gone the last 5 years, like I was saying, we're the league of the number 10 now. You know, the classic sort of Riquelme style and Ganch. If you look at what Babello did for Minnesota, if you look what Zelarayan did throughout the playoffs and newcomer of the year, that is the type of guy that leads you to trophies in MLS. And given the way that Josh maybe not so successfully dodged that question, it does seem like they're going to be going out and knocking on Boca Juniors' door, or maybe River Plate, or someone down there, and seeing if they could get their own version of that guy. Which, hey, I'm always for more type of those players in MLS.
Any last thoughts from you, Kaylin, before we wrap this thing up and try to digest what went down today?
No, not really. I think, this is just one piece of the puzzle for Austin FC. And I think when you've looked at, reflecting back on all the moves they've made and the excitement around that city right now, it's been, it's sort from afar, from socially distanced, it's been palpable to see. And just from knowing that city pretty well, I think it's a perfect market for MLS. It's got the college football, but it really hasn't had a team to really call its own. So I'm excited for them, and I think the building blocks for what they've done so far have been really strong.
Yeah, the buzz starts. It begins. It builds. Austin FC making trades, signing DPs, now taking 4 players and trading another in the 2020 MLS Expansion Draft. There's much more to come. December 16th, the end-of-year waivers here, then free agency has opened. You can see the list at MLSsoccer.com, the full list of the free agents this year. Tomorrow, that's tomorrow, on 17th, reentry process starts. Then on the 22nd, reentry process stage 2 is there. Usually that's the more busy of the 2 stages. Austin has the first pick in those. And then January 2021, the Super Draft, presented by Adidas. We'll be here to guide you through that one as well. Excited to see what happens, and Austin have an additional pick with the number 11 selection. All right, that's it for us. All the news, everything you need to know about MLS this offseason, MLSsoccer.com or the MLS app. Go download that if you do not have it already. And of course, CONCACAF Champions League is tonight, guys. So we get to sign off for a little while, have dinner, and go back over to FS2 to watch those games as well. So enjoy that if you're going to tune in, and the coverage will be at MLSsoccer.com and on Extra Time. Subscribe, check it out. Here are those 5 players: Danny Houston, Jared Strout, Brady Scott, and Joe Corona headed to Austin. Kamal Miller selected and then traded to the Montreal Impact. That's it for us here. We will see you very, very soon. Enjoy your week, everyone, and your holidays, no matter how you celebrate them. We'll see you.